All right, all right, all right.
All right.
We are live.
Okay, all right. Well, everybody, welcome to the PPC radio show. I was waiting for the little jingle, but I guess that's going to happen another time or something. So
Sorry,
that's okay.
technical difficulty.
Technical difficulties, fine. We all having those today. As you can see, if you're watching on Facebook, you cannot see me right now because I am using the miracles of technology and driving and talking to you at the same time. Everybody say hi to Shelly Shell.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited about our guests and our guest therapist today. I'm very excited to have this professional woman on our show, Jenny Graham. So today's topic is half-hearted. That came from Michael Batby, who is our guest. Before we bring him on, have you ever felt that you needed to give your whole heart to something, Shelly? Have you ever felt that in your existence on this earth, that you didn't give something 100%? Because my view of you is you give everything 100.
I do give everything 100, but I was just thinking today as it was 120 and I realized, oh man, I have to put my hair together. I said, there's way too many tasks and I think I'm not doing my very best. And I felt that today. And it's crazy that that's the topic. I didn't feel like I'm giving my very best to everything because there's 20 million things and I'm not giving my very best. I could do better. That's how I feel.
I totally understand that. We multitask so much, especially as women. I think we've grown accustomed to having to do everything, that no one thing really gets your full attention all the time. So it has to become a conscious effort. You got to really think and sit yourself down and say, okay, today, what can I do? And not try to do too much. You know, like what I'm doing right now. I'm doing a lot. Now, I didn't have a choice today. I could have said, you know what, I'm not going to be on the show. But Michael is my friend, and there was no way I wanted to miss having Michael Vappy on, being a part of that conversation. So I am multitasking like no other. But typically what I'm doing right now is sitting in my office and sitting still and ready to talk to you guys. And I believe that that's the best way most of the time, unless life throws you a curveball.
Watch out, vehicle stop that shoulder ahead.
And sometimes, look, and there lies your GPS system saying, but life does throw you a curveball. but when you're able to, I don't want to say be the master of your own destiny, but more so when you are controlling what you do, and then you don't have to listen or answer to anybody. You doing that is fine. Us multitasking is fine because we don't have that boss over our shoulders saying, you can't do that, or not on my time. I used to have a boss that every now and then I would get caught doing something else. Like, I don't know whether she would hear the words or whatever it was, and she would walk by and say, I'm going to fire you. I'm going to fire you.
Yeah. It's really difficult to do too much at a time, and give 100%. But Michael Vappy is someone that I have known for maybe 3 years, something like that now. I don't know. I meet a lot of people a lot of times, but sometimes somebody, you just click with them right away and you become fast friends. That's Mike Vappy. Now, I have never met him face to face. We have been doing business and talking and having conversations for the last 3 years. This man has such a big life. He's an author. He's a published author, over 50 books. He has been in sports. He was a football player. He went on to be a sports promoter. He's a producer. He's doing so many things. Right now, he's promoting boxing. He's got a great big life, but he's also had some struggles that he's had to work through things. And he had to come to a place where he was giving his full heart to things. So on that note, I would love to bring on Mike Vappy so he could be more diligent in telling us his story.
All right, welcome. He's here on mute. Hey.
Hey, Mike.
You're on mute.
Not now.
All right. Welcome to the PPC Radio Show, Mike Vappy.
Hey, Cinda, thank you guys for having me on today.
And this is Shelly Shell Williams, my co-host. And we also have DJ Kid Disco that's going to help me out by being a presence today. He's our producer and the owner of the channel. Say hi to DJ Kid Disco.
Hey, DJ Disco.
It's a mouthful, I know.
Yeah, I think I lost something there.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. So tell us about Michael Vappy. You know, I said that to you on my radio show and you were like, huh? That's a lot. But I think your background is so interesting. Please tell us something about your background.
Now, you know, how far back you want me to go?
If it's relevant to who you are today, as far back as you need to go.
Yeah. Well, you know, everything has a root. As you know, everything has a root.
Lanes to exit right to exit 200, I-465.
Shit.
That's her.
I'm sorry. I turned it off. Go on.
Yes, like I said, everything has a root, you know. So my roots are here in Louisiana, where I'm actually at right now, here in Louisiana. I was down here on the bayou with sugarcane field as the backdrop to the backyard. And that's about 8 miles from the Gulf of Mexico.
Oh.
And, you know, that lifestyle of, you know, Cindy and I talk about health quite often, you know, everybody down here, you know, we eat that way and have eaten that way all our lives. I know it's fashionable right now to be organically, try to eat as much organic products as you can. We actually grew up like that from the cradle till now, you know.
Organically, you're saying? You grew up organically?
Absolutely, absolutely. We had a farm, you know, chickens, I fed them every morning, pigs, goats, family met fishing every Saturday morning, fresh fish, a garden as far as the eye can see, you name it. We had it in the garden, and that's how I grew up. You know, that's my nutritional foundation from that perspective. My grandmother used to actually go out in the garden and take vegetables and make a little hot water mush with it, and that was our baby food. You know, that's what we ate, just straight out the dirt, straight out the garden.
But does it help you? Did it help you physically? I mean, I know that's what we're doing now, but you feel that it like you didn't have many health problems because you ate so organically?
Well, you know, absolutely. You know, that was my nutritional foundation. Growing up, we were never sickly kids, never had colds. Last time I had a cold from that perspective. And now that I'm, you know, 5, 6 decades later, I still just recently had a little stay in the hospital, but, you know, that was for something that was fixable. But the whole, you know, having a bunch of pills over time, all these years, you know, I don't have any medications that I take. Now I only take one. That's just a blood thinner because I've gotten older and they say I just need a blood thinner because I have thick blood, but nothing catastrophic or, you know, the norm. None of my brothers and sisters, we don't have diabetes.
Wow, that's saying something.
That's
saying something. That sounds like a beautiful life to me. That sounds like a dream because we were eating stuff at the grocery store, in the hood store, and I absolutely know that there was nothing organic in those stores. And you know what I'm saying? I mean, and it's still not. You know, they're just now trying to provide fresh vegetables, fruits and vegetables to our communities in urban areas, which is very different than, say, Louisiana or down south, where you have room and space and soil to plant and feed. That sounds like a beautiful life. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it takes a lot to get used to. I was funny. The crazy thing, we talking about this today. I put some spinach in the pot, and it was the fresh spinach. I said I don't think I would have survived in the and eat Garden of Eden because this stuff looks like trees. I feel like this is straight trees in my pot. This doesn't look like food to me, but I know I gotta eat it. I understand, but I don't think I would survive in that Garden of Eden.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's processed stuff you get in the can. You know, we get it out of that, we have to actually clean it. You know, take all the stalks out and all that, and it's a different kind of thing. You know, and we had fresh eggs, those brown eggs. I just paid $20 a dozen for it. We had so much. We had so much. We used to actually give away a lot of food. You know, with the pigs and meats and goats, and we used to give away so much food every Saturday. You know, just I mean, we truly grew up in a village type environment because face it, I mean, I'm only one generation removed from slavery. I mean, you think about it, about a generation and a half there about. My great grandmother was a slave. My great grandmother was a child slave, and where we grew up at in an area which was called the quarters, as they speak of now in regards to slaves and the slave shows, and that's where the slaves lived in the quarters. And many years later, we actually grew up in those quarters, you know, on these plantations down here, you know, and all those recipes and all those foods and all those things we learned, like okra and all those things that are indigenous to Africa that they brought the seeds over in the braids in their hair when they got here, shook their hair, and that's why you got all these different seeds and plants and vegetables. That's where it comes from. That's how I got it, you know, from that perspective. But
Well,
I
that's
grew up down here, you know, played ball
hmm
down here, high school, the whole 9 yards, and I left Louisiana, went to University of Arkansas, left there, went to Southern University. Around the mid 80s, the United States Football League started. I was up in Birmingham for one of the 2 years that league lasted. And after that, I got into sports marketing in Orlando, Florida. When I was there in Orlando and did a lot of work with a lot of my friends who got, you know, long careers in the NFL and NBA, things like that. I was there 3 years before the Orlando Magic got to Orlando, and I was in sports and marketing with the local NFL retired players chapter there in Orlando. I did a lot of all these celebrity golf fundraisers for charities all throughout Central Florida. Um, I got put on the National March of Dimes Committee at the time with Michael Eisner, who was president of Disney, myself, and several other CEOs around the country. I was on that national board, which is based in Orlando. I was on the City Economic Development Committee with the city of Orlando, um, and represented a lot of athletes over the years, professional athletes in multiple sports.
Well, let's talk about this sports. Let's talk about you said you were a sports management. Now tell me, you know, sports. I'm not really into sports, but I like the players. No, I'm just playing.
Yes, she did say that.
Tell me about the sports players. Tell me about those sports players you was messing with right over there that you were managing and how'd that go?
Well, you know, it's like anything else. You know, everybody's who they are. You know, I've learned something a long time ago. What you are without money, you're 10 times that when you get money. If you're a nice, kind-hearted, giving person, thoughtful, caring, when you get money, lots of money like that, it's just going to enhance. It's just going to enhance that side of your personality. That's all it's going to do. And if you're a tyrant, and you know, womanizer or that kind of guy, whatever, the money's just going to enhance that side of your personality. You know, so and I found that to be the case with a lot of these young men. I found over time I started to observe and notice a lot of these young, let's, let's just speaking of football, even basketball to that degree, um, watching these young men coming into professional sports, watching that transition, like today, you know, they're like totally broke. You know, I mean, they're broke. They're in college. They're broke. Families are in poverty. They come from a impoverished family. In 2 years, 24 months from that, you know, they go to a D1 college, they play ball. While they're there, they don't go to class. College has somebody taking doing their lesson for them just to keep them on the field or the court. And 24 months out of the projects or out of some impoverished family, you give them $50 million and drop them in a strange city. And they was in college, but they didn't go to class. They didn't learn finances. They didn't learn the finer things that they need to know regards to what they were about to embark
Is
upon in
that
their
what you
life.
taught them?
Huh?
Is that what you taught them? Is that what?
No, I mean, no, that was the process. I mean, you have this kid who just a good athlete. He goes to D1 college. He stayed in college for 2 years. He's so talented. The NFL or NBA want to draft him. They draft him. Okay, so 24 months ago, 2 years, he was in the projects. He's, in a broken family, whatever. But 2 years later, he given no education because he didn't go to class, and because the school took care of all that to keep his grades up, so he could qualify to play a sport. And then you give him $50 million, drop him in a strange city, and you ask him to behave. He's just going to be who he is with the knowledge that he has, which is nothing. So I found myself talking to a lot of these young men over the years. Not so much advising them about finances. I used to tell, these always ask me about this person or that person. I never even introduced them. I know a lot of CPA people or accountants and stuff like that in those cities, but I never introduced them to these people, because if these people would have wronged them, they would have definitely thought that I knew these people. I was trying to be a part of wrong, doing something to hurt them. So I stayed in my lane, when it came to their nonprofits, every single athlete you see on the sidelines or a football game or basketball, every single one of them got a nonprofit. So I used to just stick to what I knew. I developed their nonprofits, develop their fundraisers, be it a softball, charity soft tournament or golf tournament for them, or a charity softball game or basketball game, things like that. They help them raise money for their charities that they supported or their own charities. So I just stayed in my lane. I've had a lot of conversation with a lot of them, and I followed a couple of them over the years, and some of them are totally broke again, lost all their money, or, they had a new best friend waiting on them when they got to the city where they want to play a sport, and that person they was introduced to by the team, some local banker or somebody like that, or some accountant or whatever. And that guy's kids are still in college or went to college, and, those high fees they charge these young men, and
that goes to show you that money without knowledge is nothing.
It's nothing, right?
It's nothing, because it's just paper that you can burn. If you don't know how to use that paper, it can be something that empowers you, or it can be something that takes you down a road of darkness. It can be a lot of things. It's a symbol. But if you don't know how to use it practically, and most of these babies don't. I mean, I feel so bad for them. And it's that in so many different, not just sports, but entertainment, whatever.
Everything.
All the musicians, all of this. They're used up. They're taken in, they get thrown money. They're not taught how to use it. They're not taught what to do with it. And then they use them until they're not usable anymore for, maybe it's a musician and they get one hit and then they get rid of them, or they're a football player that has an injury, or they're a basketball player that ages out, but they were never taught what to do with their money. And honestly, that's actually an idea for someone out there that's listening. What a business for you to decide that you're going to help be part of the educating of the athletes.
There is one. I know a girl. She's doing that. I interviewed her a little while ago. She's doing that. That's what she's doing. She's educating.
Wonderful.
She's also doing some of the things that Michael did as far as helping them with their nonprofit. But she educates them so that they're not broke and they won't stay broke. And she starts them young. So there are people doing it. I feel like the information is there now. It's not when back in the day, the information wasn't readily available, but now the information is readily available and people are teaching. They just have to want to do it.
But my point, what I'm not talking about waiting till they're pros. I'm talking about having these conversations with young players that are in middle school. Okay. Start teaching them that at that age, because yes, not 95% or more of those kids are not going to make it. But the 5% you did get to in 7th grade and 8th grade, by the time they get to college, they know what they're doing. And so you don't have to try to teach an old dog new tricks, because they already know at a young age how to deal with. I worked in the schools a lot, you know what I mean? And I've worked with a lot of special ed. And I have found that special kids get way more teaching about real life than our other kids.
Really?
Because you know why, Cinda?
They're
You
taught
know
how
why?
to cook. They're taught how to use their money. You know, kids. Some of these kids don't even know how to balance balance the checkbook or go online and check and make sure that they're not overspending. They don't know the basics
Well, you
because
know,
they don't
Cinda,
teach our kids that. What's that?
in the educational world, like you talk about in school, it's an assumption from from the local school board or the education system. It's a total assumption that the kid haven't shown the signs that they were deemed to be whatever the qualified kid to be, quote unquote, special in that capacity. It's an assumption that the other kids aren't or don't have need of that. And like you say, everything's
You're right. They're
yeah.
all special. If you're alive and you're a child, you are special. And and they should be taught the same things and more
Right.
that the other kids are taught, but they're
Right.
not. And so they graduate from high school and they don't know where they are. Now y'all talk because I'm gonna park, okay?
All right. So
Okay.
with that said, let's I saw I heard on the podcast some of the people you worked with before was Michael Strahan, and he definitely made a good career for himself. Was he somebody that you managed or that was in the beginning?
No, I didn't have to, in that capacity. No, just the same thing like most of those guys that I mentioned that were clients of mine in that capacity of helping them with their foundations. Some guys, when they go to different cities and be with certain teams, they align themselves with local charities, whatever they may be. I've always directed them towards sickle cell charities in these cities when I dealt with them, because the sickle cell charities wasn't getting a lot of recognition from that capacity. Specifically, when I was in Jacksonville, Florida, the sickle cell chapter there, I had quite a few players off that Jacksonville Jaguar football team affiliated with that charity, and I always direct the players toward that charity because when the players come into the city, they align themselves most of the time with the charities that the team supports. And a lot of times, the team supporting charities like United Way and these charities, well, on local levels, these United Way charity offices, these guys get funded, serious funding. Like I remember I was in Chicago a couple of years back, and I was with a buddy of mine who was with one of the executives with that local United Way. These guys getting like $40 million a year funding. The United Way, these charities, like the one in Jacksonville, Florida, was getting like $19 million a year funding. But the sickle cell charities, well, these are Black charities predominantly dealing with Black kids. They wasn't getting that kind of funding. So I used to always align the players up with these charities while they're there, however long they was gonna be with that team in that city, to do some things with them. But players like Mike and all those guys back in the day when they were just coming out, uh, Dwayne, he went on to become, everybody know him now as The Rock. He became a wrestler when he was at a sophomore at the University of Miami back then. That's when I met him.
You worked with The Rock?
Yeah, him when he was just a kid. I mean, just coming out of college. He was next door neighbor to a friend of mine who died a couple of years ago. Everybody know Tommy from the sitcom Martin. Tommy, that was like my best friend.
Tommy was, wow.
Yeah, me and Tommy is very tight. His wife Gina, his wife name is Gina for real. Gina from Jamaica, and Gina was the East Coast rep for Nike and Gatorade. And her being from Jamaica, when Usain Bolt came on the scene, so she's now Usain's personal marketing, national, international marketing director for Usain. Wow. So all these guys, I've done things with. Still have.
I knew Gina.
And yeah. Okay. Course, so I'm talking about
course, Gina. Yeah. Oh yeah, I actually knew Tommy before he met Gina. Oh, and wow. They were such my cousin used to date his brother, so they were really close.
Yeah, Tommy was a cool guy, man. He was really down to earth, as you know him. Tommy was just a really good guy, and Gina.
He was so amazing, and I miss him so much.
Yeah, I talked to him the Thursday before he passed away. He told me he wasn't feeling well. I talked to him on Friday. He said, well, he was in Atlanta, I think, at the time. He said he was going to the hospital and went to the hospital. And I talked to Gina on Tuesday morning. She called me back in the day on Tuesday, and I asked her time. That's how I found out he passed away. Yeah. But But you know, a lot of guys over time, you know, in regards to their, you know, working with these guys and helping them out, and most of them now, you made a mention about, as we was talking about, you know, a few minutes ago, in regards to helping these guys. Well, you know, about 15 years ago, I noticed a trend. There she is. I noticed a trend.
There she is. Yes.
Yeah, I noticed a trend in regards to uh, agent and representation for these athletes, the black females. Black females started surging as agents, sports agents, and now they're really out there big time. You know, they're attending combines and everything. And I started noticing that there are easier, the black female was easy, it is easy as of today, easier for them to get to approach these young black male kids to about marketing them, representing them, being their agent than black men, because you know, in the whole thing with these young men coming out of predominantly these single parent homes, which is predominantly the mom, you know, they already have a profound trust in the black female, their mom, seeing her being strong,
Mm.
working all these jobs, doing whatever it takes, you know, to keep the house together, keep them taking care of them. And I tell guys all the time, and guy asks me, say, man, how you know that? I say, bro, have you ever noticed when you're watching a football game, basketball game, 99.9% of the time these young boys are hollering, hey mom, you know, on the
Hmm.
camera, hey mom, hey mom. I have yet to today to see one that say, hey dad. You know, it's the mom. So the black female, you talk about people wanting to help send in that capacity. Young women today, most states doesn't even require them to pass a test to be an agent or nothing like that. Like if they're a lawyer, they can just go ahead on, they qualify automatically. But the black female sports agent, that's a big area right now for young women, black
Mm.
females to represent athletes, because they don't have to sell themselves, they don't have to sell their trust, they don't have to sell their diligence, they don't have to sell none of that. It's easier for them. Those young guys have a problem with the black males because their fathers just wasn't in their life.
Mm.
You know,
That's very sad.
they didn't see that strength in the black man. You know, but the black female right now, the black female is actually pushing out all the Jewish agents. That's what's happening. The black females
Mm.
pushing these Jewish boys away from them that was robbing them. To answer your question, okay. I mean,
Happy Black History
that's
Month.
just the way it's been for years. Yeah.
Mm. Let
Happy,
me ask you this, Mike. When we first met, the project that we were talking about at the time, honestly, now is like not even a subject matter anymore. We were doing the take the knee. We were trying to do the take the knee thing. Remember?
You know what? It's funny you brought that up. I got a call just last week from Dawn, the young black lady I told you in Atlanta that has the law firm, about
Hmm.
that. And you know, Mr. Bobby Seale, you know, he's still living, you know, with the Black Panther. He's 85 now, out west. And I talked to him 2 weeks ago, and he sounds like a 20-year-old. Okay, I mean, and he still wants, you know, and he still, you know, would like to do that. And now, since as you see, it is even more prevalent. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Although it would have to come from a different point of view because taking the knee is not an issue anymore. Everybody sees that a knee should have been taken.
yeah, yeah.
Knees should have
Now,
been taken. You know,
mm-hmm.
now
yeah,
they know that. So it's about taking that knee. It's about fighting those in power that are holding people down. I mean, I remember when I guess we got a 2 minutes till break. Um,
yeah. I see that.
I remember when you were telling me about how your perception of when owners bring in players, how it felt like a like slaves being sold on the pole.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, some of the things you told me, I just couldn't believe.
Well, and that's
Um,
exactly what it was modeled after. The NFL draft was modeled after how slaves were sold on the block. Like
Mm.
they had the block literally to put them up on this block so everybody could see them above the crowd. They literally do that inside of the offices where they bring the players in for training and testing and all that. They still stand on this block.
wow.
I know, right? Now, more of the astute young black men coming into the league now have been bucking against that. It's been some things happening in that capacity, you know. And I tell guys all the time, when you look at these professional games, NFL, baseball, football, whatever, When you looking at when the camera flashing these sky boxes, when you see those little kids running around up there, they're the one that actually own the team. That's their trust fund. Those little bitty kids that be sitting up there, that's their trust fund. That's their team. That's their money. That's them. That's that business is theirs. So it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
That
It's
is crazy. I would have never known that, but I guess from the outside, we would have never known that that's how they were actually choosing it, like like slaves. We would have never known. So when you said they're changing it now, has it gone into place that they're changing it, or is
a
it
lot
just
of the players, these young men coming up now because they have access to information, like we're talking, they're really not with that. It's a lot of internally, it's a lot of stuff that doesn't go public, but within the organizations are making changes in those capacities because it is the process that is so reminiscent, especially young men coming from the South. Even though the young Black people up north all migrated to but the ones that grew up in the South and I've heard the story like myself, I'm 61. I was 8 years old sitting at the foot of my great grandmother, who was 104 at the time, who was a child slave, telling me the story straight up how it was when they got off the boat down here on the bayou at the local plantation. I mean, telling me all this stuff. And I could drive right now and see the plantation. When they did that movie, The Django with Jamie Foxx, that's like 8 minutes from where I'm sitting right now.
Oh, wow.
You
right there in the history. Not only are you making history, you're right there in the history.
Yeah.
I think it might be time for our break. I think 2 minutes might be up, right?
Yes, it is. And you guys, whoever's with us, please come back with Mike Vappy and Shelly Shell Williams and Cinda Williams. See you guys after the break.
WGFB-FM radio.
So are you ready?
Yeah. How it used to be. Something for everyone. 24/7, 365.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
For the health and safety of our guests and team members, we're here for you. That means frequently deep cleaning our stores.
All right. We are still live on Facebook, of course. So while the commercials are playing, hi everybody out there that's watching. Thank you so much for watching. We are still here. We're just playing a little commercial breaks, but we're still here. We're still around. We're not.
How are you guys on Facebook celebrating Black History Month? Are you celebrating? Do you celebrate? I was talking to DJ Kid Disco earlier on the Melanated Morning Show about this, and I was taught to, I came from Chicago, urban town, so we learned about Black history. And so I've always celebrated in some way. Last year and again this year, I'm posting about little known people in our history who have changed our world. That's how I'm doing it. How about you guys?
I believe in celebrating it, but to me, I guess I'm celebrating it through the just everyday people that I promote and post all the time, because I believe in we have history and there's people still making history right now. So, but yes, always promote Black history, because we Black. To me, we Black 24/7. I don't get rid of it. I'm Black 24/7. So I always believe in promoting Black folks, what they're doing and how they're doing it. So yeah. How about you, Michael?
Well, it's funny because as you say, we Black history, we live it, we are Black history. We are it every day. I mean, it's kind of like almost a psychological oxymoron. I mean, we think about, well, we can celebrate Black history, but we Black, we making history every day. It's just the things we are striving to overcome. I mean, some of the basic things in this country that we kind of get just kind of get a level playing field on the basics, as a striving thing. Like this little town I'm in right now, for instance, everybody know about the Pentecostal religion that's all over the world, right? Mm-hmm. This little town I'm in right now, with less than 1,000 people, it's called Burdenville, Louisiana. It is in this little town that a little old Black man left and went to California and was the founder of the Pentecostal movement that's all over the planet right now. Little guy from right down the street, his family right down the street. Talking about global history out of a little bitty southern town, And we were just talking about that a couple of days ago, about they plan on building a statue down here, things like that.
30 seconds. folks.
Yeah, I'd like to, if we could, get into some of the self-help part of this. Want to talk about some of the things you've survived, Mike.
Good. This is Trey. Already know I gets down with the get down, man. Grown folks radio all day.
Hi, everybody. This is Cinda Williams, and I am the co-host of the Melanated Morning Show and the host of the PPC Radio Show. And you are listening to Grown Folks Radio.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Y'all remember that?
Sing it.
Well, you went from football to a lot of other things, right? Mike, I also know from having known you for a while and talking to you that you are a very religious man. You come from the church, and are you a minister?
Well, only one thing is that I find myself to be more spiritual than religious.
Okay.
And to answer your question, I don't know, because I never titled myself or, I'm just a believer, you know what I mean? And I try to keep it at that, because so much stuff is attached to all these titles and perceptions of titles and that kind of thing. And, if someone perceive you to be like, say, let's use something to say, someone perceive you to be a bishop. Now, everything that they may conceive or perceive that a bishop is and or should be, they would probably naturally, without thinking, associate you with all that too. You know what I'm saying? And that's just not me, But
you've been ministering to people,
like I'm saying, talk about
college, right?
Yeah, right. Like talk about that. I mean, I find myself over years and I pull back and look back and say, I kind of been doing this all my life anyway. Young people coming to me or athletes, friends of mine or whatever, talking like this anyway. And one thing I've always found in my life, over my life, because of that, like where I grew up and being in a household with, I had a Catholic mother. I had two Catholic little sisters, but they were Catholic. My baby brother, he was Catholic. He was an altar boy. They all went to catechism at 6 o'clock on a Saturday. Okay. I'm standing there, thought my mom was going to make me get dressed and go with them. She never said anything. Then comes Sunday, my grandmother was a minister. I honestly don't know what denomination, but she took my oldest brother and made him go with her on Sunday morning, made him a little deacon, and I'm standing there once again. Well, she didn't make me go with them either. So I thought like, wow, okay. So,
That's unusual. I don't understand it. So what, did they give you an option? Did they say you can? They didn't even give you an option?
Right. I mean, think about that. I grew up in a household with two women, my mother and grandmother, and 5 kids. My mom had 5 kids. So as I just laid out to you, that's what they did. And I'm standing there like, okay, what about me? Without saying it, they never did. They never said to me, Mike, get dressed. Neither one of them, Saturday or Sunday. So back then, the milkman used to deliver milk door to door, and they had these big metal milk crates. They used to bring 4 or 5 bottles of milk in, and we used to keep a couple of them every now and then. So I took one of them and sit on side the house. And I used to sit on side the house and just had I planted this little tree, when I was 8. And as a matter of fact, since I've been back down here, I passed by that house. That tree is like 40 feet tall now,
Wow.
In that house where I used to live at. But it was that time in my life, I just started talking to God about just like we talking now, just, and one day a little lady was passing out these little red Bibles, the New Testament Bibles, and I said, can I have one? And she gave me one. That was my first, I think I was like 10 at the time. And that's when I started reading that then. So all I've ever known, which is fashionable now, as people say, is to have a one-on-one relationship with God. That's all I've ever known. I never got caught up in the religious thing, the whole quote unquote going to church thing and all that pageantry and stuff they go. I never was a part of that.
You never wanted to ask? You never said, your grandma, your mom.
But they took me one time. They took me, check it out, but they took me one time, right? And I was sitting as you walk in, and boom, right to the right, there was a back pew way against the back wall. And I said, that's how I went all the way into the corner. I said, I went all the way into the corner. This lady way up on the front pew, all the way to the right, started screaming, and everything, right? Started shouting. I'm gonna say screaming. She started shouting. And I watched like it was in slow motion, guys. I'm kidding you not. To me, it was like slow motion. She let her purse go and it was flying through the air. That thing came all the way in the back, fell right at my feet, fell right on top of my feet in the back corner back there. I got up and ran out, and God is my witness. I don't think I've been back to one of those kind of churches since.
That would be frightening for a child. That would be frightening.
It terrified me. It did. I ran out the building.
I mean, I grew up in a church where people was running up and down the aisles all the time, and sometimes I run with them.
Right, that's what I'm saying. You ever get into the thing, you start running.
I run with them, but that's how I grew up. That's what I witnessed as a child. To take a child that has never experienced that before, never seen it before, it would be frightening.
It did. You know, and years later, I watched this show that Richard Pryor, these guys had this movie where they was in there flipping and everybody talked. You remember that? They had this movie, everybody, he was a minister and all these people was running all over the place, flipping, jumping up and down, cutting flips and all that kind of stuff, like gymnastics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can get very physical. Very physical.
It really can. I don't think I didn't grow up on that though. They didn't do that. They didn't do a lot of that.
I went to a Methodist church. It wasn't a African Methodist church. I went to a Methodist church, and I don't know how. It's like we were under the banner of Methodist, but it was it was more like.
It's like white Baptists. It's like white Baptists and Southern Baptists. It's two the same
totally
Baptists, but
different.
It's two different. Right.
Totally different. I never went to another Methodist church like mine. My grandfather.
He said, "Which way is up?" Is the name of
the. That was the name, right? That was the name of the movie, right? They was flipping like somebody doing gymnastics, and it was off the chain. And I pointed out, watching it and laughing. I said, you know what? I've seen people actually act that way, you know, in these churches.
Yeah. Right? Still today, and you know, they're in the Pentecostal church. A lot of white folks be jumping and running.
You see, that's the ironic part about what I said earlier about the gentleman from here. You know, he was the son of a slave. You know, that was here in this little town that went to California and started the Pentecost. He's the founder of the Pentecostal movement. They talk about this street down in California called Azusa Street. You know, that's where he was at with Smith Wigglesworth and all these guys. You know, and it is actually documented that Smith Wigglesworth was really one of the only person in the history of the United States that actually, quote unquote, raised someone from the dead. You know, based upon the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, the whole night. And this guy from this little town was the one who was with him. You know, and his last name is Augusta. That's what I know. I forget his first name.
Oh my gosh, I used to be engaged. I used to be engaged to a guy. His last name was Augusta, and he's from Louisiana. No, his family's from Louisiana.
Well, it might be his relative because they're dark-skinned guy.
No. Well, I mean, I guess.
Well, you know where I'm at down here, Bill. You know, they have a lot of mulattoes down here, so it's all through this little area down here. You know, his family, like my family, have dark and they have really fair skin. So, you know, it could still be, you know, but it's definitely down here, you know, down in this area. So
I would definitely ask him if he's watching right now, because he's still my Facebook friend. We're not engaged anymore, but Augusta, let me find out that was you. Let's find out that's your family, brother.
So let me ask you this, Mike, how then did you find yourself writing spiritual books?
Well, what happened, you know, it's like anything, you know, over time, life experiences, and I've always been a meditator. And I really got hold of the scripture one time I read in the Bible that God says that, you know, you have all these ministers and everybody, whatever, you know, teaching, preaching, philosophizing, theorizing, whatever. You know, I never really been a part of that, a big fan of that in that respect for us growing spiritually, you know. And I ran across the scripture a long time ago where God says, seek me early, and there you'll find me, and I'll show you everything you need to know. I'm like, oh, okay. So that kind of and that's where that one-on-one relationship thing kind of made sense to me and stuck with me, you know, and that's what happened when I was really young. So that's why I started talking and reading the Bible as a little boy, and it just carried me all over, and it always guarded me. You know, I grew up down here, a young man, you know, good athlete and all that, you know, in the paper all the time, you know, into that kind of thing, you know, so everybody knew about me, so forth, so on. I had like almost 70 scholarship offers, you know, when I got out of high school and all that kind of stuff in football, you know, and all that. And it was easy for me to succumb to being like this cocky, crazy, out of control kid, you know, with all that attention, you know. And those are the kind of things that help bridle me along the way, because I was always concerned about something, someone else other than myself, even back then. You know, I was 2 weeks out of high school and I wanted a car. You know, I was 2 weeks out of high school. So I went downtown to the Ford dealership, got the biggest car, the biggest car they had on the showroom floor, you know, a Mercury Marquis two-door brown, all leather, 8-track, big old long car. Got the paperwork. I called the lady at the bank. She told me to get the paperwork. I took it to her, and the old dude sitting at the desk had his back turned. I tapped on the desk. He turned around and said, "How can I help you, young man?" You know, and I said, "Well, Miss Trowbridge, the lady on the bank was upstairs. My mom used to work for this lady. She used to take care of our parents for years, right? So she told me just bring it over there. She's gonna give me the card." So, but the guy downstairs didn't know that. So I told him, I said, "Well, here you go." Give him the paperwork. He looked at everything. He said, "Well, okay, young man, where you work at?" I'm 2 weeks out of high school. I ain't thinking about a job, okay? I said, "I don't have a job." He said, "How you gonna pay for this car?" So I say, "Look, Miss Trowbridge wants you to give her a call when I get, you know, told me to tell you to call her when I got here." So he turned his back to me. He turned his back to me in the chair, right? Leaned back, got on the phone. I remember the conversation like it was this morning. He said, "Margie, hey, this Louvier, got this young man down here, you know, he wants to get this car and his name is Mike." He must have cut him off. He said, oh, okay. Turn around, sign right here. Right then and there, man, I could have had me a brand new car. But that's what I'm talking about for the standpoint of just saying in regards to being bridled, you know, by my understanding of the things that I learned, but not being selfish. Because I knew if I'd have took that car, my mom would have been totally like a slave to them for the next however years it would take to pay for that car, because I had no job. You know what I'm saying? And so I didn't. You know, I didn't sign the paper. You know, and he wanted.
Did you just want to see if you could do it? Is that what I mean?
Well,
You went through all the steps.
No, I was 18. I was like, yeah, I wanted it, but it's something hit me, like she was saying. You know, I just got that quickening in my spirit right then and there. When I got ready to grab that pen, all that stuff came, like I'm sharing, all that just flooded my mind. You know, I saw me and my boys ride around in it the whole 9 yards. You know, had that whole flash, but I said no. I told him no. You know, and I look back on that, and that's been the way of my life, has been that kind of way ever since. I've always, everything that I look back, everything that I've done, you were talking about these young people earlier, everything that I've done has been trying to help young people. You know, all these charities and all these things, always been young people, kids. That's why they gravitate toward me today. They're like, you know, young people. So, and, you know, everything else. And every time I elevated myself more to another level spiritually, always some natural element of negativity came in my life. And I can track it like like it's right in front of me. You know, every time I count out the football, I really got really started seeking God a lot. Just started going places. Literally, guys, I stood in the middle of the desert at night and talked to God like that, sitting on a rock. I've done things like that in my life, you know. I mean, out there in the lower, you know, I'm talking that noise like, maybe the devil will show up. I probably ran out that desert, but I did it. I did stuff like that for his growing spiritually, you know. And every
Mike,
time,
let me ask you this. I know you are working on a book right now, because I kind of want to get into the theme a little bit before we bring in our guest therapist, Jenny Graham. I want to get into it a little bit. I think we got like 10 minutes till that's going to happen. I think we're going to have a commercial break, and then we'll bring her in. You working on a book now called Half-Hearted, and that really resonated with me. And kind of like, that's kind of why the podcast was on that, because you said a lot. You said so many things that I could have drawn from to put as the theme. But that half-hearted, living life half-hearted, can you tell us about that book and give us an introduction of it and why you're writing that?
Well, you know, one day I was sitting out back, and It was a cloudy day, and I looked at the trees, and literally, I looked at the trees, and the tree branches themselves formed this half of a heart. I could see it as clear as day. You know, it's this massive oak tree, and it's like a half heart. And that's when that's when I'm listening to the spirit in my spirit, and it's half-hearted. And then all my mind just started getting flooded with all of the half-heartedness about us in our life. I mean, people get up every day, guys, as y'all may know, and do things that they really don't want to do. You know, they go to work, they really don't want to go. They're not pleased with it. Very few people do things that they actually say they would love to do as a child. You know, when you're a child, you have a clear vision of excitement. And you say, I want to be a fireman. I want to do this, that, and another. But 9 times out of 10, you grow up, you never do that. You do other things. You know, so we go through life like that with a whole half-hearted attitude toward things just to get through the day. You know, as I shared with you, Cindy, you know, the heart itself, not that flesh and blood pump that's pumping in your chest. That's just for the vessel you walk around in to maintain this mobility, if you would, on this earthly plane. We're talking about that heart behind the heart, the real you. And that's where that comes from. That spirit right there, that's who you really are. You know, the Bible says God wants your heart. When he first created us, he created us with a whole heart toward him. You know, our whole heart was toward him because we had nothing else to do with our heart and our love but for him. We didn't have need of anything. He designed us not to be that way, you know, to have need or worry or concern about things. So we didn't have to put energies into nothing but just loving him. You know, so that's where that comes from. The man or the woman in your life, they want you to give them your heart. They want your heart. You know, that job, they want you to show up with a wholehearted attitude. You know, so everything is about the heart. You know, all of our ideas, everything come out of our mouth is formed and fashioned and stirred around and molded in our heart before we even speak of things. Our mind is a processing entity that helps us to evaluate, to disseminate, and coordinate what those things are that the heart is giving us to speak about. That's why I say out of the mouth, the heart speaks. Out of the heart, the mouth speaks, because that's where it starts. It's in the heart. And one of the other books that's kind of supporting this down the road is called the Heart Gate. You know, we have these 3 gates. You know, we have that eye gate, ear gate, and that heart gate. You know, be careful what you allow your eyes to gaze upon. Be careful what you allow your ears to take in listening to. And also be careful who's standing at the gate of your heart to guard and protect the things that go in and out of your heart. You know, so it's all about the heart.
That's powerful. But when it comes to the heart, when you say that we do things half-heartedly, go to work half-heartedly, if we put our mind on doing things for God, is that a way to transition from doing it half-heartedly? If you say, listen, you know, there's a scripture that says, do all things as if you're doing it unto the Lord. So if you do it as if you're doing it unto the Lord, can't that transition you from having to do the job? Oh, this job, I can't stand this job. But if you say, hey, I'm doing this for the Lord, and you know, because things can turn around.
Well, you know, first of all, you know, if you will allow your mind to help you make that shift, you might as well stop right there. Because, you know, it is the heart that gets you to the place of realization that know that you need to renew your mind. You know, so it's your thinking. Your thinking comes from what's in your heart. If you'll have a heartfeltness about something, and then you begin to process it in your mind, that's when your mind takes the next step, processing what you're feeling in your heart to allow you to process that to get to a place of thinking like you would take you to coincide and work in tandem with your heart. You know, you just can't, because that's why he says, you know, renew your mind. Because because as a man thinketh, truly, that's who you are. And that's what you'll do. And that's what everything else about you. So if you want to have that tool to strengthen you and to move you from one place to the next, it has to be an orderly thing in dealing with the heart. The heart is the heart represents love and everything that you truly are. So that being said, you must first get that right before you can actually get your mind right, or use your mind to make a shift in what you're.
Amen. And on that note, we're going to take a break. Y'all think about that while we're taking our break, and then we're going to come back and introduce Jenny Graham. Take it away. Maybe. Kid.
FBFM Radio.
So are you ready?
How it used to be. Something for everyone. 24/7, 365.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
For the health and safety of our guests.
Nikki Phelps said, "You can't make yourself change," and then you said it. He said, "Yeah, what he said." Yeah, well, I feel what you're saying. I was just thinking about it in a different way. Like if you, of course, change your heart, but if you know, so many people think bad thoughts, and you have the opportunity to change your thought process with what you're saying or what you're doing. Isn't that what affirmations are all about? Like, or prayers are all about, or however people get to changing their mind, it may be through their words. I love my job. Thank you, God, for my job. This job is going to pay my bills, Lord. I do this for you. Isn't that? I mean, you're not necessarily changing, but you're changing the way you feel about it, and sometimes it comes to fruition, right? No, yes.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's those things come after. First you learn what to do before you can do it. And that's, once again, it is so profound and so to the depth of talking about the heart. That's why God said that's why he pounded the heart of man.
Mm-hmm.
He don't punish your thoughts. If he's had to deal with our thinking, we'd be like really bad shape. If we relied on God to use our thought life as a way to consider how you want to deal with us or what's going to happen for and to us, we'd be all jacked up. We probably be a little burning.
People like, I can't use you. Your thoughts is dirty.
We probably be a little burning cinder somewhere. You know what I'm saying? But that's why he says he pounded the heart of man. Because it is the heart. God said he made us in two ways. He made us in his image and his likeness. The image means it's spiritual. We are spiritual. We are a spiritual being in a fleshly body on this plane. His likeness, that's where, like I say, that's where the hookup is with God. He made us in his likeness. Like parents say, well, that kid's just like his mother, or she's just like her mother. The likeness, meaning what? The ways, the actions, how they participate, how they are at their core. It is the actions, and it is the likeness that deals with the heart. And the heart that we have is that kind of heart that God has. That's why you always talk about the agape side as opposed to those other fellatio and all those other natural, physical, tangible things. Those are methods of love, but it is the heart. I mean, everything's about the heart. Get your heart right, your mind will follow.
Absolutely. God looks at the heart of man. I say that. I tell women, the women, he looking for that man. He looking for what he look like. You better start looking at what God looking at the heart of man. You might have a good looking man with a shaky, breaky heart.
or no heart, right?
Or no heart. Yeah, man. You better watch out.
And you are listening to Grown Folks Radio.
Join me so we can grow together. Conversation, get that healing. Let them know what they're missing. Share with your best friend. Tell them come hear this. Yeah. Don't you dare miss your blessing. These powerful lessons. True confessions. Yeah. PPC.
All right, way to get it in there, DJ Kid Disco. Way to get it in there.
Mm-hmm.
So, Shelly, can you please intro?
Oh, I don't have her bio in front of me, but I can say that yes, Jenny Graham, she is a licensed art therapist. She's also the founder of Trauma Free. We know we want them to be trauma free. I had the pleasure of taking one of her courses. It was a week long. I think it was a few weeks of really getting to know ourselves, going back to my past and bringing it forward, and how the past affects what's going on now. It was a really enlightening experience. So Jenny Graham is a wonderful human being, a wonderful therapist. So welcome to the virtual stage. Here is Jenny Graham. We got claps. Oh man, we got the whole sound effects and all. Look at that, Jenny.
Hey. So exciting. All right, I'm like on my side, like, okay, which thing should I look in? All right, oops, sorry, I'm getting it together. All right, here we go.
I can hear your feedback.
Let me turn off my Facebook because I was listening to y'all and it's echoing.
Oh, good. You were listening.
Okay. Here we go. There we go. All right. Now I'm good. Hi, everybody.
Hello. Welcome to the PPC radio show. I have been so looking forward to meeting you and hearing what you have to say, because on a lot of levels, you are into some stuff that are very interesting to me. But tell us your thoughts about this whole concept of living life with the whole heart. Versus half-heartedly. Give us your spiel, girl. Fill us with some wisdom.
Yeah, I got some nuggets. So thanks so much for having me again, Michael. It's been great to like hear your book. Sounds very interesting. It definitely it resonates with my heart. It was speaking to me. I was, so I just real quick, like, my name is Jenny Graham. I'm a life empowerment coach, a licensed art therapist, and the CEO of Trauma Free University. I help change agents with marginalized racial and/or gender identities to achieve empowered healing and emotional freedom to go from surviving to thriving in all areas of life. And so I define change agents as those people who are actively out here either embodying or having an impact on positive social change. So that's a little bit about what I do. I know Shelly said I don't have her bio, but she's worked with me, and so that's been great. So I was taking notes because like y'all were talking about a lot of good things, and like so I have a little note with some nuggets that I definitely want to hit on. And I think when it comes to, Michael, you said a lot about like really being heart-centered and heart-led, because I think we live in a society that always wants us to think about everything. Right. We gotta think about stuff, we gotta justify things, we intellectualize things, which then means we rationalize stuff, we're constantly using our brains for things, when in reality, I agree that like it's our heart that really is gonna give us that most profound insight. Even the work that I do as an art therapist is really about tapping into that subconscious space, which is like our emotions and like our experiences, our emotional responses to life and situations. And it's in that space where we actually get more information and insight about who we are and what we need. I love that you said, Michael, that like you stay in your lane. I feel that. Like I'm like that too. I'm like, my lane in justice work is mental and emotional wellness stuff. And Cindy, you mentioned something about, having knowledge and information and not knowing what to do with it, like it's pointless. Like you can have a bunch of info and it doesn't mean anything. And so for me, I look at that about like our emotions. A lot of times we don't connect with our emotions because it's been taboo, there's stigma, we just don't know how to because we're not really taught about them. We kind of know happy, mad, and sad. We don't really have an emotional vocabulary, and the reality though is like our emotions are actually sources of information because they are responses to people, experiences, situations. And the more we understand or can identify those emotions, the more clarity we have about what we need. And so once we know what we need, we can then either communicate that to other people, or we can take the actions we need to on our own to get our needs met. So really important to be aware of like what we're feeling, which often goes overlooked. So one of the things I was thinking about, like, how do you really live fully? How do you have like really show up and give your all and everything? And one thing I suggest to people, like concrete thing, is like take some time to write out what you value. A lot of times we go through life, we have no idea what we actually value, or we'll hear somebody else talk about values and we'll be like, yeah, that sounds good. I like that. I do that. I believe in that. But like literally take the time to write out what you value and then start to look in your life and see, do your actions and behaviors, are they in alignment with what you value? And so for us entrepreneurs, that's always great because usually we can see that like we're pretty in alignment with like what we're doing, but it can also be helpful for us where we can then be more discerning about what we choose to show up for. Because like my values, like I'm connected to a lot of different things. There's a lot of things I'm passionate about. But when I'm more clear about like, these are my values and this is the season of my life that I'm in, I can make more decisions about where to invest my time and my energy. And then I can also, and since we talked about spirituality, I can also trust that divine timing will allow me to show up for the other things that I'm interested in when that time is right, and that time will present itself. And as long as I'm spiritually connected, I'll be paying attention and I can take action at that point. So that's one thing I would suggest. The other thing too is like looking at our passions and our interests. And Michael, you touched base on about like, you know, our childhood stuff. Like a lot of us forget about our childhood dreams. And that's a great place to like, if you feel like unfulfilled or like you're not fully showing up, is to look at like, what did you care about when you were little? Like, what were you passionate about? And then look at your life now. Like, what can you do to incorporate that into your daily life? And so it could be based on like, maybe it could be an entrepreneur journey or a hobby or something like that. But even if you have a job that you hate going to, you know, so I'm speaking to the folks who got the 9-to-5 hustle, you know what I mean? Like, if you recognize what you value, if you recognize the things that are of interest to you, you can then start to pay attention to where are those nuggets and gems that show up where you can live in that at your 9-to-5 job that you hate. Because then you won't hate your job so much because you can start to pay attention to those little nuggets and those gems. And that allows you to also feel more fulfilled because it's like, oh, I actually, even though this job title is not what I want to do, it's not my thing, but there are these moments that are here. And then there's the honest thing too. If you find that there aren't any moments at all, you may want to reevaluate some things and maybe see if there's other options available to you. And when it comes to also like our childhood dreams too, you know, I feel like as adults, we forget to be playful. And we really need to invite more play and joy into our lives. That's why so many people are miserable, because like they don't do anything fun or playful. And once again, if you think back on stuff that you did as a child and like start doing those things now, you will get so much joy in your life. And like once you activate that joy inside of yourself, it will shift your perspective on things. It will shift your energy. It'll shift the way that you connect with people. And so like literally as an adult, take time to do something playful. I share with people a lot of times when I take a walk, there's a playground not far from here. I go on the swings. I used to love going on the swings when I was little. Like I still will go on the swings. And some people maybe seen me one night I was out there, I tried to jump off the swing and I don't know, that didn't work out so well. I looked like I was drunk. And I was like, I'm not drunk, I'm having a spiritual moment. But like, but you know, it was playful and that makes me feel good. And then when I feel good, I share that with the people around me. You know, I'm able to like shine that into the world. And also like the society that we live in right now, we have to be able to imagine new possibilities, right? We need to be able to imagine a new world. And you know how we exercise our imagination? It's through play. Think about it. Children use their imaginations when they're playing. If we do more playful things, and even as counterproductive as it feels sometimes as like busy entrepreneurs, take the time to do something playful to give yourself that pause. Your mind will then give you different answers that you were not able to think of otherwise. So I always invite people to try that. In those moments where it feels counterproductive, where you're like, I gotta figure out this thing, gotta do this thing, gotta do the thing. Pause and like do something. Like if you draw, like doodle, maybe write something, paint something. I love model magic. You can actually get that at the dollar store. It's like a type of like between clay and Play-Doh. Really fun. It's very marshmallowy. Like do something simple and playful just for like 5-10 minutes. And you'll be surprised like how new things will come to mind. Like even if you think about that as like a form of active meditation while you're doing something playful. So those are a couple of things that I think are like really, really helpful to, you know, incorporate. Look at my time. All right. So the other thing too is like when we think about giving our all, we need to keep in mind that what our all looks like fluctuates from day to day because we're human. You know, depending on what we have going on personally, depending on how things in the world are impacting us, you know, depending on who in our lives we need to be showing up for, what our all is will look different from day to day. And so I also suggest like offering yourself some compassion that like your best from day to day is not always going to be the high achieving expectation that you have of yourself. I am very guilty of this. I have extremely high expectations of myself and other people, and they're not always very helpful, you know? Also keeping in mind, if you're like a high achieving kind of person, your mediocre is still way better than anybody else's anything. So, so keep that in mind. Always like, I identify, that might be me. Yeah, so, but like give yourself some compassion and like, because we really need to really, you know, it's an opportunity to connect with your own humanity. And honestly, the more we connect with our own humanity and offer that self-compassion, the easier it is to offer compassion to others and vice versa. The more that you practice offering compassion to other people, the more opportunities you have to start to look at maybe how you're not doing that with yourself, and then think about how to offer that to yourself. That's even like one of the reasons why I do the work that I do, specifically as people of color. Like, for us to like claim the fullness of our humanity, we need to be looking at our mental and emotional well-being. Because without looking at all aspects of our humanity, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, if we don't look at all of that, we're unconsciously dehumanizing ourselves. And that's just replicating what we've been taught to do in this country. I'll also piggyback that with like being a person of color. I know, like, growing up as a little Black girl, you know, I was taught, you know, you always gotta be better. You gotta do better. You gotta be better. You gotta show up, you know, because they're gonna overlook you. You got 2 visible strikes against you, you know, and all of that stuff was helpful. It helped me to survive. I've also realized for me to really move into this new space of like thriving in my life, I've had to reevaluate some of those expectations and pressure and standards that I put on myself. Once again, especially as like a high achieving person, I don't really need extra burden or pressure on myself to do well. And that becomes self-defeating for me. And that's where we see people getting in these cycles of emotional exhaustion that leads to burnout, you know, and then that circles right back to, we need to take these moments to pause, to be playful, and to make sure we're intentional and making like, you know, good decisions about where we invest our time and our energy, or with who we touch. Some people, I'll touch on that a little bit, or who we invest our time and energy with. Everybody does not deserve your time and your energy. Like Michael said, protect your heart. So yeah, so that's like something else that I think is really important, is like thinking about, you know, and Shelly mentioned about like going back to like childhood stuff, which I had her do it in one of my workshops. And a lot of times the expectations and pressures that we've received, you know, we've received those messages from our family members, we've received them from society, and they have been helpful at some point. And just like any coping skill or any like skill that we have like in life that helps us to show up, we can get to a point where that no longer serves us anymore. And it doesn't mean that it was wrong, and it doesn't mean that it was bad. It just means that it has served its purpose, and we can now be grateful for it, let it go, and integrate whatever that new information is. But we have to be able to let it go before we can integrate that new information.
Exactly.
Otherwise, we won't have space for it.
Right.
And that happens emotionally too. Like I tell people, like, healing from things in your past creates more space. More times than not, I work with people who realize they just have a lot of stuff to let go of. Because I truly, 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 without a doubt, believe everybody has everything that they need inside of themselves. It's just that life shows up and we take on a lot of stuff, and it gets a little cloudy in there, and it's kind of hard to sift through and find like what's that authentic heart space that will allow us to then take actions that are mostly like in alignment with like who we are. And the last thing I'll touch on real quick is about, because Shelly, you mentioned affirmations. Affirmations is kind of my jam in terms of even like self-care. So I'm gonna give y'all a little art-based nugget on how to like look at affirmations. So I think it's helpful for people to understand the purpose of them. The purpose of your affirmations is really about consistently introducing new information to your subconscious. Your subconscious mind pretty much controls about 90% of your behaviors and actions on a daily basis. Everything that's happening in your subconscious mind is the stuff that you have absorbed from people over the years of your life. And if you think about that, that make it a little scary if you really get in there. So we need to like intentionally, actively on a daily basis be introducing new information. So like that negative talk feed, that like that loop that goes on, the only way to disrupt that is to constantly be bringing in that new information. So that's why it's important to read affirmations every day. Because the more that you read them, the more that you will internalize them. And then all of a sudden you'll start showing up like, oh, I feel very worthy of this experience. I feel like I deserve this. And it's because you've been like telling yourself that every day. And so the little nugget, I'll give you a little art-based activity on like how to come up with affirmations that will like truly, truly speak to your heart space is, once again, circle back to the values and the passions and your interests. And find some images. If you're an artsy person, you have magazines at home. So if you're an artsy person, you have magazines, grab some magazine images that represent like what you value, what you're passionate about, what you're interested in. If you don't have magazines at home, you can use digital images online. Just do some Google searches of some different images that just kind of represent. And so this can be like concrete, specific imagery, or it can be like abstract imagery that just kind of gives you that feeling of like, yeah, that feels like the thing that I care about. And so gather some images together and create either a digital collage or like, you know, like glue, paper and scissors collage. And then use that collage and think about it giving you a message about itself. And so this collage is going to tell you something about itself, starting out with the words I am. And so for each statement or each thing that this collage will communicate to you about itself, write out an I am statement. And then what you end up doing is you're writing out a list of affirmations, because what you'll find is that image is going to speak to your heart deeply, because you've used the art. This is a little art therapy technique. You've used the art to project and to embody what you're feeling emotionally. And it doesn't go through any of that primary and secondary processing in your brain. It's straight from your heart into this image. And then this image is then going to speak to you. And if you create a list of affirmations from that, you will feel the shift, because it's way different than just coming up with a list of like stuff that you should say because that's what such and such said, like, oh, these are good affirmations to use. Like that doesn't work for everybody. You want something that truly speaks to your heart and speaks in the language of your own subconscious mind. And so that's like a great way to do that. And you may find out maybe there's some things that it may say some I am statements that you're like, ooh, that makes me feel uncomfortable. I might need to work through that. That doesn't feel so good. And if that's the case, you can contact me at Trauma Free University. We are here to help. So I think those are all my notes. One last thing. One great question to ask young people if they're doing like career counseling or trying to figure out what to do in their life is ask them, what problem do they want to solve? That will open up a whole different conversation versus what do you want to be when you grow up. And I think those are all my little notes that it took that I wanted to touch on.
Well, that's a lot, and I love it. I love it. That's what I've been waiting for this second hour. And thank you, Shelly, and thank you, Jenny. It's funny because our show next week is called I Am. That's what the theme of next week's show is going to be. I am. And so I can feel what you're saying about that whole talking to yourself, because I had this conversation to myself today. I do that all the time. I have full conversations with the person that I want to talk to out loud. I just say out loud what I want to say to them. If and someone I know that is going through something right now, and they tend to be on the dark and somber side. They're quiet. They internalize everything. They don't talk about everything, and they kind of like that about themselves. They like the darkness, but the darkness has brought them into the dark. And so one of the things I was saying to them in my spirit to them, to theirs, was it truly is a choice, this happiness thing. And if you're not feeling happy, that is because you're sometimes you got to start with I am happy, and you got to smile when you don't feel like smiling, and those hormones go rushing through you. And sometimes you have to believe it to see it, and you can't believe it to see it until you start claiming it. So I think it is so important what you said about that, especially when it has to do with being half-hearted and doing things that you don't really want to do. I talked about this on the podcast. When I had to walk away from my career to raise my daughter, I was happy to do it. I never thought I could have a kid. I didn't think I was able. And so when God gifted me with this beautiful child, I was very happy about it. But eventually I had to work because I wasn't making my little money on my little movies anymore. So I had to work, and I was bitter. It was like, you made this choice, girlfriend. You decided to not get a nanny. You decided to not stay in LA for good reasons. So this job that you got, it's not fair to your employers, and it's certainly not fair to the kids that you're teaching to come in there with a half heart, to come in there just making that dollar, thinking about the little bitty dollars you're getting. Come in there and be you. So I had to do that self-talk. So I recognize the things that you're suggesting to find the place in me that this job brings me joy. It's not what I want to do, but today it's where I am. It's where I'm supposed to be. And I'm going to do it with the fullness of my heart.
Yeah, thanks. Can I jump in real quick to say what you shared about your friend in the darkness? One of the things that I find is helpful is like people think that there's no light in darkness at all. And so visual metaphor for your friend might be is like, if you're in the darkness, what are your stars? Because we forget that it doesn't have to be one or the other. And also that like happy is not a destination, actually, it's an emotion. And what we really want is to be content. So if your friend can be content and find out like in this darkness, I do have these stars that light my path, or there's this moon that lights my path. I can still be in the darkness, but I know that there's light available to me too, because we really often have to like integrate some balance between those. So I just wanted to offer that to you real quick.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
But it was funny when you mentioned burnout. Right before the show, I honestly forgot the time. I was into this project that wasn't going well at all. And like I can't find the password. I mean, it's a website that I built, but I lost the password and there's no way to recover it. And I'm just upset. And I was just sitting there for a minute. And then I looked at the time, it was 1:20. I said, my hair wasn't done, my clothes wasn't on. And I was like, wait a minute. I said, I'm about to be burnt out. But then instantly I got back together. But it was the moment I was like, I'm burnt out. I'm just burnt. I'm done. I felt like just everything was just on me at that moment. But literally by 1:30, my hair was done and I was ready. But it was that moment. It was like, I feel out. Like, really? Like, I can't believe this is not working for me. And I still don't have the password. So still don't. But after this, I'm going to still have to find the password and get to it. But I don't think I was doing it I think I was doing it half-heartedly because I can't believe that I would lose something. I was mad at myself. How do you lose a password? I mean, I guess it's doable.
Self-compassion? Like, go on.
I mean, but I didn't because I had been sitting there for hours coming up because you only get a couple tries. I was like, one more try, I'm out. I'm out the game here and I'm going to lose the whole website. But I never found it. So I'm just praying. Because I need it before 7 o'clock. They're expecting this work to be done.
Well, we will send you vibes.
Right.
Send me these vibes. But I said 1:20.
Right there. That's awesome. You know, one of the things, Jenny, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Jenny Graham.
You know, one of the things he kept saying was passion. That talking like we're talking, I can do this every day, all day for the rest of the year. You know, this is my passion. I discovered that growing up as a child, and I found that to be the case, and I applied it to everything in my life. And as Cinda knows, we're in the midst of a project in waiting. We're trying to deal with that, and you know, on that level, and you know, I'm affiliated with professional boxing on the highest level, even putting together some stuff now with HBO Sports for, you know, pay-per-view stuff like that, all that. And, you know, Cinda, how it is when, you know, you start moving around all these different types of people in the sports world and things like that. A lot of people would just like lose their mind to be part of all that kind of stuff. That's not my passion. It never has been. All the stuff I talk about with this, you know, and I think I've never allowed myself, the reason why I knew it wasn't because I never allowed myself to just go like overboard and just dive into that world and just forget about the rest of the world and emerge as this person that like a lot of people are, you know, in that business, in that world. I've always was on guard with that. And then sometimes when I found myself headed that way, I always had something to pull me back. And my passion was my concern and thinking about how God sees me at that moment. You know, what is it? I mean, I knew it was jacked up, so I knew I just couldn't do it. You know, I would tell you guys, I was sharing with Cinda, you know, ministers always approach me. People always approach me, strangers. I walked in the airport and they say, hey, excuse me, pastor, excuse me, deacon, excuse me, could you, like that, you know, could you show me? I'm like, for a long time I used to say, I look around like, you talking to me? You know, and I got to the point where I just started answering people, you know, I just started doing it, you know, because like the old people used to tell us, people see things in you that you don't see in yourself. And I guess these were things that they were doing, and walk up to me, and I had people literally walk past me, strangers, turn around, come back and holler. I mean, this one lady did that to me. And she just said, all this stuff in you, when are you going to let it out of you? I'm like, what's what I'm talking about, you know? But years later, I found myself getting married. And I stayed married 9 days. So I beat the Kardashians, you know what I'm saying? I stayed married 9 days. Big wedding, the whole shebang bang. I did, you know, and she was a police officer and found out, you know, I mean, you know, I just found out that she had some issues, but that was a whole nother story with her own personal life. But she twisted some stuff around and got me in trouble with the law. And this down here in Louisiana, and this old guy, this judge was really racist, and he wouldn't let me speak. He gave me 14 months in jail, and I'd never been in jail in my life. I used to be a police officer down here as well, you know, all that. But, you know, so I was in this place 3 weeks. It took me to adjust, you know, just being in it on that side of the door. Like I said, I used to be a police officer. I used to work at a jail, you know. And so I did that. And then all of a sudden I started waking up every night, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, every night, for like 12 straight months, every night. I'm writing all these things. I wrote 52 books in 14 months. This book here that I shared that with Cinder, one that's on Amazon now, the ABCs of Spiritual Growth, that's the first. And this one here, Half-Hearted, that I'm working on now, is one of the 52 books that I wrote. All that was in me. You see, God got me still. And when I got still, all that came out of me.
Won't he do it?
It never would have come out of me, you know?
He will do it, but I'm saying, God, don't put that. I don't want to go to jail for that, but I'm blessed you that you got don't sit me still like that. Right?
He's not a path for me to keep you still.
But you know, it was my journey and my path. It was designed for me, you know. And while I was in there, you talk about the young men. I was in a place with 64 men, and I was the oldest one in there. And all these guys are in their 20s and 30s getting these 40-year sentences for this, that, and another. And I'm talking to these young men. They coming to me every day like little children, sitting at my feet, talking, asking. That was to me. That was awesome. To be honest with you guys, I mean, it was absolutely awesome. I had so much favor in there. I didn't realize I was in jail most of the time. I mean, from the warden on down. You know, he would come up to me and he saw me walking one morning. You know, in those places, you have to walk with the deputy everywhere you go. Not me. I was walking all over the place like I was walking there at home, you know. And I had so much favor in that capacity. And I wrote these things and I had them all over my walls, which you're not supposed to put nothing on your walls in these places. I mean, I had like wallpaper, so much I wrote. I had it on the ceiling. That's how much stuff I wrote. And a lot of couple of deputies that were there for a short period of time before they went back to Afghanistan, was working part-time. We were out sitting outside getting some sun one day, and the guys came back in. The guy came to me and said, Mr. Mike, you know, you mind if you duplicate one of these, this right here, that right there? We want to take it with us back to Afghanistan and put it in our rucksack while we're out in the desert. You know, things like that. So the writings that I wrote in that place, but before I got out, was halfway around the world in these guys' rucksack. You know, that's why I said, you know, God's a mystery to us. We're not a mystery to him. You know, he knows tomorrow. So he already knew then, way back then, that would happen for these young men via me being still. You know, the animosity that I had in my natural mind toward the young lady I was with about what happened. Within a matter of a couple of weeks, he took all that out of me. And then he began to reveal to me that, you know, Mike, everybody you meet in your life every day is just a tool in your life. They're going to be a tool to do one or two things, to enhance your life or to detract from your life, to help you or to hurt you. There's no gray area. Everybody you meet, that's it. It's no gray area. They either help your life or hurt your life. And that's it. So I took all that out of me and then I began to grow. That's when I really grew, you know, about all those writings. And I look back now and I shared the list with Cinder, all these subject matters, all these books, all these topics. And I grew spiritually from then, and it's been great because the passion that I developed as a kid and being alone with God, that's where I got my passion from. That is my true passion. You know, I mean, since we've been talking, my phone been ringing to people in Tampa in a big meeting right now in Tampa that I'm supposed to be with them today. You know, but I put the people together that flew in for the meeting because they need to be together, you know, because I've done my part. That's not my passion. Most people have been like, right, you know, we got the HBO people over here. And all. This is my passion. Okay, you talk about your passion. So I know my passion is.
Yeah.
You know, and I've learned that a long ways. And
well, it's amazing.
It goes away.
I think your life is a perfect example about living your life fully wherever you are. I mean, it's like, it reminds me of Paul in the Bible. You know, most of the New Testament was written in a jail cell, and that has been the direction of the church since, right? So to be able to be still, like you said, and use your heart, use all of it, and be beautiful right where you are. That is such a blessing, and it's such a testimony that I hope people are hearing.
Yeah, Cindy, you know, one of the things I used to actually tell those young men, I used to ask them this question. I said, when you first get that police officer first put you in the back of his car, and you knew you was going to jail, what were your thoughts? What were you thinking about? And he used to say to me, well, I'm about to fight, I'm going to have to do this. The guys don't want to fight me and all that. And they said, well, what you thought about, Mr. Mike? I said, I thought about a place to rest. I looked up on it as rest, because then I proceeded to tell them, I said, guys, y'all sitting here reading the Bible, and I say, raise your hand. How many of y'all consider yourselves believers or Christians? And they all did, obviously. And I said, Christianity did not start until Jesus got arrested. Had he not gotten arrested, all the rest wouldn't have happened. It was purposed and designed for him to do that. And as you said, Cinda, yes, Paul wrote 2/3 of the New Testament, not just in jail, but chained to the walls. And almost got beat to death 6 times with whips, 6 times short of his life. And he wrote it by moonlight and daylight. And that's true. And I told him, I said, you guys consider yourself in good company, because from Jesus and all the 12 disciples, those guys stayed in jail. I said, consider yourself in good company. I said, God designed it for that reason. So he already knew, because Jesus himself said this, when I was in jail, you didn't even come visit me. So he knew the feeling you have when nobody cares about you no more, or nobody figures you just nothing. So that's what I said. That's empowered me and strengthened me. And then a lot of stuff started flooding my mind and heart over all those months that led to me just writing all that stuff.
That's so powerful, like everything that you shared, Michael, and you kind of expanded on your chuckle, because I felt that chuckle when Cindy said about like where part of the Bible was written. I felt the chuckle, and you explained it. Yeah. It's so cool, like to be able to, because I feel like it's always in hindsight that we recognize like the divinely ordered path, and that, like, you're right, like we don't understand a lot of it, but if we are like showing up and we're open and we're ready to receive that, like we don't know what that journey is going to look like, and like it's not always going to be smooth and easy as like most experiences aren't, but that was so cool to just hear like this woman was like, you have a lot in you, and now you speaking to me a little bit, like I'm taking this for my own nuggets, because I've been told several times that I have a couple books in me that I need to be writing. I've even been told to read this book called You Need to Write a Book.
And you need to write a book. Everybody needs to write a book, because that's why I call it history. It means his story. Everybody needs to write a book. Everybody.
So you also talked about like kind of like, for me, I kind of took it as like sometimes you got to pull back from the stuff and make sure you feel aligned with like where you are, because like you can easily because I find that too for like business, there's certain business practices and I'm like, that doesn't really resonate with me and what I represent. Like I'm not going to do that. So curious about this whole book, because I hear a lot of people in professional spaces who say like, oh, whatever book you write first, that's going to be your flagship book, and that's going to be the book that you're known for. So did you think about that in terms of like the order that you put your books out or publish them in, or did you just publish like what was on your heart and just went from there?
I mean, really, I never even considered that. Like I said, I've yet to finish structuring all those other ones, but the ABCs of spiritual growth came from me. God took me back to the basics, the elementary aspect of being still, like a teacher would tell a kid in first grade, be still, because they're trying to teach you something, So that's what happened with me in that capacity. He got me still, and began to teach me the ABCs of spirit, to learn all over again, to actually shape, form, and quantify all that I thought I knew and stuff I didn't know. And that's why I say be still and know. He know. And he's, like I said earlier, he said, and seek me early. There it was. I mean, I wake up 2, 3 o'clock every morning like clockwork, and I'll show you things you never knew. And I finally got that,
Yeah.
I really did.
Yeah, that's that creative effort too, definitely.
We have about 10 minutes before we have our music jam and we say goodbye to Facebook. So when I've waited too long, it's been too late. So I would really love for you, first Michael, and then you, Jenny, to let people know how to look you up, find your stuff. Because I want people to read your book, Michael. I want people to know who you are and support you, Jenny. And I want you to come back because you've been a pleasure. So Michael, where can they find you? Tell us.
Well, first they can find the book at Amazon. It's in Amazon. ABC's of Spiritual Growth. That book is, and I'm forthcoming with Half-Hearted. But on Facebook, I have a place called Spiritual Books on Facebook. When you type in my name, Michael Vappy, it'll pop up. It'll be there. And I'm in the process of also polishing that up to just support all the writing stuff itself, which is forthcoming as well. And also ABC's of Spiritual Growth at gmail.com. You send me an email, a thought, got any questions, something hit you in the middle of the night, 2:30, and I promise you I'll get back to you very soon, like within a day, because I look at it all the time, and I'd be happy to do so.
Thank you. Thank you. Jenny?
All right. So yeah, you can find me on any social media platform. LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook at Trauma Free You. So it's TRAUMAFREE and just the letter U. So that's how you can find me on like Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. Also, if you're on Facebook, I do have, well, obviously some of you are watching us on Facebook. So I do have a private Facebook group called the Break Free Community. And in that space, it's all a bunch of change agents. We're in there focused on solution, positivity, mental, emotional wellness. I do a weekly live show. I talk about things like work-life balance, self-care, relationships, things around identity and the stuff that gets projected onto us, specifically as people with marginalized identities. So I talk about all those things in the Break Free Community. So you can look that up as well. If you just search for Break Free Community, it'll pop up and you'll see my face on the banner there. And yeah, if you just want to contact me directly, you can check my website, which is just www.traumafreeuniversity.com. Or if you want to send me a direct email, it's just info@traumafreeuniversity.
Thank you. Thank you. Shelly, you got anything you want to say, you want to share before we start wrapping up?
I had a joke, but it was funny. When you said her name, it reminded me of the movie Jenny. Forrest Gump.
You know what? That's all right, because I was in Orlando all these years, moving around the country. People always tease me. I tell them, "Oh, I get the voice I sound. I don't even understand myself sometimes." Like Bobby Boucher, right? Okay, I get it. I get where you're going. You know what I'm saying? That Janae.
Janae. I'm just playing. Just a joke, but it came to my head. I was like, I'm just gonna shut up. But I had to do it. Janae. Anyway.
That's funny. Yeah, I said that's okay. That's good. That's funny.
But no, I have continue to watch us, continue to support the grownfolksradio.com. We'll be back for Motivation Monday on the third Monday, and of course, single on a Saturday night every fourth Saturday. And this is our 9th year. Literally, this fourth Saturday makes our 9th year for single on a Saturday night. Haven't figured out what I want to do yet, but that just means I've been single for 9 years.
Nothing wrong with that.
It is nothing at all. But I am in the process of writing my book as well. I have a writing coach, and I have assignments I have to make sure I write, because I put me aside for my work all the time. I put my life, like my work, what I want to do for my clients all the time. And now I can no longer do it. I have a coach that says, "Did you write today? Did you do this today?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't." So I'm working on it. Awesome. But next week.
Yeah. Well, for me, don't forget that DJ Kid Disco and I are on Wednesdays and Thursday mornings from 10 to 12 Eastern Standard Time in the morning. He is so silly. But we have a lot of fun. We talk a lot of politics and life, and so please join us if you're around. Also, I drop my PPC podcast, which is an introduction of our guests for the radio show every week at Fridays, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time on Anchor, Spotify, or whatever. It's called the PPC Podcast. And this week it will be with Keisha Rose. And I'm very excited to have Keisha Rose on the PPC radio show next week with our guest pastor, Reverend Mitchell. So that's going to be fun. Talking about I Am. If you are on Facebook and we have to say goodbye, punch in www.thegrownfolksradio.com so you can hear the music mix from DJ Joe Storm, because he rocks it. And I'm going to tell you how he does that. I send him the podcast so he knows what we're going to talk about. And he takes the theme into his mind and he puts together a mix that is geared directly for the show that week. So it's always uplifting, it's always fun, and I love it. So if you Facebook, we can't play music, you know that, but everybody else, you can stay with us and get our groove on. We get our seat dancing on. I'm in the car, so I'm gonna be doing my car dancing today. So come with us, Facebook, if you want to, and everybody else, stay with us while we do the dance, DJ Joe Storm mix. Thank you again, Michael Vappy and Jenny Graham. I love you. I just love people. And I already love you, Jenny. Thank you.
This has been great. It's been really great to be here. So thank you so much for inviting me to join you all.
Thank you. Shelly, you want to say anything else?
Oh, no, that's it. We're good. We're going to just jam. I'm ready to jam.
All right. DJ Kid Disco, you want to say something, man? You've been quiet.
Well, I'm just a random black guy. Hey, y'all. I'm just glad to be back.
We're blessed to have you.
I'm great to be back in front of the boards.
Yeah.
I'm glad to have you back in front of the board.
I'm just a random black guy in the booth. But we're going to see y'all tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow morning, right?
Yep.
All right. Well, I guess we're ready for some DJ John.
Hi, Facebook. We're still here on Grown Folks